everybody. Hope everybody's having a good time. At the moment, I am live according to what that feed says right there. So I'm just going to assume and keep going. If there's any issues, please just leave something there and we'll go from there. Or add a comment, let me know if anything's messed up. But I definitely want to head into this because I'm going to be doing a reading and it's going to take most of the time. So it only gives me a few introductory minutes here. So let's go. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to Mike for having me on. Definitely greatly appreciated. And hi, Mike. I see you there. Nice. And just proud and honored to be a part of this group. It's a fantastic group. It's not your typical Facebook group. Michael has really done something special with this group. So I am proud to be a part of it. We'll say that. So my name is P.D. Oliva, and I write sci-fi, fantasy, and horror novels. My latest sci-fi fantasy series is called The Rose, and Volume 1 came out October last year, and Volume 2 will be out later this year in December as well. But I also write horror novels, and I love my horror. That is a definite fact. So I'm going to read an excerpt from a horror novel that is going to be coming out in either late September or early October. Haven't officially decided when, but I will get that officially figured out probably very soon because end of September, October is going to be here before we know it, and that is a fact. It's just the way time goes. So I will definitely know what I'm going to be doing as far as that is concerned. So the title of the horror novel is called Golem, all right, and it takes place in New York City in the late 1940s and early 1950s. And what is going on? So, all right, the story revolves around a young new detective named John Ashton, and John Ashton was just promoted to detective and part of the missing persons unit. And his first case is to find the district attorney's missing daughter. She's been missing for about 2 years. And when he gets the case, his only lead is Elena Francone. Now, a little bit about Elena Francone. She is a sculptor and artist and also a high society socialite. So, a part of New York's social elite class, I guess you could say. However, she's been committed to Bellevue Psychiatric Facility for the past 7 months. This is, at the moment John meets her, it's November 1951. So when John does meet her, he starts to question her. She starts to tell him the story of Golem. And Golem being a demonic presence that she incarnated into a statue that she had created. Remember, she's a sculptor. So what's going on in this part? We're about a third of the way in, maybe a quarter into the novel when she starts telling the story. And so she's telling the story, and at this part we are in June 1947. And what's going on with Alina at this point is she is 3 months pregnant, all right, and she is getting married to her fiance, whose name is William. You might hear about him in this excerpt, but so, yes. So she's getting married. She's they're concealing the pregnancy. They don't want anybody to know about the pregnancy. And right now she is in the village, Greenwich Village, New York City, with a couple of her would-be bridesmaids. And, I think that's it. Yes, that is it. So we're going to start. So this is where she's going to meet the Gypsy woman, all right, who is, I based on the Gypsy in Lon Chaney Jr.'s The Wolf Man, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. So when I had this idea of the Gypsy woman, her name is Maria Ospensykaya. Whew, I hope I got that right. That's the actress's name in the movie. Her name is Maliva, so I kept the name Maliva in here and kind of changed up her real last name. So we're going to get there. We're going to meet the Gypsy woman. We're going to hang out with Alina, and we're going to get a palm reading as well. So sit back and enjoy, and might as well start. Let's go. Okay. Maliva Ospensaka would prove to be the catalyst that altered Alina's fate. Mid-June arrived with a hint of summer off the heels of spring, and Greenwich Village was hosting a street festival in honor of the Beat Generation counterculture that held fast to the village. The energy was freedom, love, and intellectual sovereignty through artistic expression. Alina felt right at home in a place where societal rank and class systems were impenetrable in this small corner of the world. She was able to drop the facade and be herself, if for even one afternoon. Her friends, Jackie, Crystal, and Hannah, also Alina's would-be bridesmaids, were not as open to the movement, calling it silly and desperate and, of course, immoral. The bridesmaids referred to the movement as a typical fad, brought on through a fog of reefer madness, that would lose momentum once the kids grow up and need to care for themselves and families. Then they'll scatter, scurry, and run to the nearest suit and beg for a career. Such judgment always brought the same reaction, Alina's rolling eyes and often embarrassment, especially when the bridesmaids would sneer and snicker at the locals. She knew they did not want to be in the village, but she kept pushing to continue. Alina wanted to buy a fabulous piece of art or jewelry finely crafted by one of the locals. The bridesmaids purchased not one item, with the excuse that any item bought and purchased by such weary hands would never find a mantel, table, or wall in their homes. High art to them was fashioned by those of high quality and social status. We have the Mona Lisa, they would say. Why bother with the minuscule color representations of a dying generation? Alina wanted to run from them, or keep them in the village as long as possible, tie them in, and never allow them to leave. Maybe then they'd conform and accept the counterculture. Sometimes you just have to beat stupid out of people for them to wise up. Most often, there's no getting through to hard-headed, stubborn judgments. People only see what they want to see and put on blinders when discussing alternative possibilities, as if they shouldn't be bothered with someone else's opinion. When you're part of the elite, all the answers reside in what you have. The more you have, the more you know, and those who have nothing know nothing. Alina was fed up within the first hour. Plus, morning sickness seemed to have a mind of its own, never reserved solely to morning. Her growing irritation ramped into overdrive when they came upon the goat. Who keeps a goat in New York City? Laughter and giddy sneers from the bridesmaids. It's the village, Jackie said, with laughter in her voice. Maybe it's the sacrifice when the sun goes down. Crystal yanked the rope tied around the goat's snout. Black goat, she said. The goat returned with a bah, bah, and kicked its hind legs, eliciting further laughter. Alina was not pleased. Neither was Maliva, for that matter. Maliva Uspinsaka tore out of her shop. Hanging bells on the door burst into jingles and caught Alina's attention. You leave him alone, she hollered in a thick Russian accent, her bony finger raised, scolding the bridesmaids, who stepped back from Maliva's protest. Scowls replaced their laughter. He's good boy, said Maliva. She turned her attention to the goat, petting the animal's head and chin. The goat gave a sympathetic bah, as if the animal said thank you, acknowledging Maliva's protective behavior. The bridesmaids glared at Maliva. Alina's eyes narrowed. She stepped closer to Maliva. Please forgive them, they are ignorant, said Alina to Maliva in a thick Russian accent. Maliva turned to Alina, her hand still on the goat's chin. Maliva studied Alina, looked her up and down. Her gaze stopped when her eyes met Alina's. Ignorance is not an excuse for cruelty, she said. Alina paused, looking over her bridesmaids and their narrow stares. They'll have the Gypsies shop closed down Monday morning if they want to. It was that simple. A phone call to the mayor by way of their fathers or significant others, and this gypsy woman was out on the street, goat in tow. Alina wanted the situation diffused as quickly as possible. She returned her gaze to Maliva. Agreed, she said, and gave a quick acknowledging nod. Maliva maintained her study of Alina, assessing and scrutinizing. Alina returned the stare, sincere and comforting. She was taken by Maliva's eyes. Both eyes were a charming crystal blue, although her right eye shared that blue with a deep black on the top right corner of the iris. Sectoral heterochromia, Alina thought, when one iris has shades of a separate color. This abnormality, Alina concluded, provided Maliva with a depth of character that elicited a mysterious, enigmatic response. Possibly it was part of the show. The sign in the shop's window read palm reading, that Maliva relied on to engage her customers. Those beautiful crystal blue eyes captured the customer and welcomed further inquiry. Further inquiry resulting in a tilt of the head, accompanied with a studious gaze that led to the tiny compartmentalized black of her eye. As the blue was welcoming and inviting, the black drew you in and captured your attention, as if the black were a trap door. Once you locked in on it, you fell through in a blinding, mesmerized state of trance. A trap door in the back of the eye. And that's when she got you to shell out more of that hard-earned cash. The goat's baha, not once but twice, broke the lady's concentration. Alina noticed Maliva now looked at Alina's stomach. You, she said, her voice soft, sympathetic, and as she cocked her head, her gaze moved from Alina's stomach to her eyes. Need reading? Alina covered her stomach with her hand and forearm. She knows, Alina thought. Not even the bridesmaids knew. Chapter break. It was necessary to maintain secrecy. William is her fiance, remember, Alina's fiance. William and his family required for the pregnancy to remain a secret, to protect the family reputation against all outside influence. As a result, Alina jumped at the chance for a palm reading, shushing the bridesmaids when their protest reached a fevered pitch. Alina promised the bridesmaids she'd meet them at the Clarefield for a late lunch. Honestly, the best possible way she could get rid of them. All right, quick pause real quick. The Clarefield is a hotel, all right? And Alina and Alina's family have been the proprietors of this hotel. It's like an inn, catering hall. They have been the proprietors for decades at this point, all right? And the Clarefield Hotel is based on the Claremont Inn, which was a real inn, real hotel in Harlem, all right, East Harlem, New York. And it existed from 1804 to 1951 and fit absolutely perfect in the story. It was everything that I needed. It was like a home run, perfect. Even the way the Claremont kind of went out of existence fit perfectly into the story. So I was very happy to find that. But now you know what the Clarefield is. Okay. So honestly, the best way she could get rid of them. Alina's interest was piqued with Maliva's ability to know she was pregnant. How could she know? At 3 months pregnant, Alina had barely started to show, and even what did show was manifested in a slight fattening of the stomach, which Alina had explained away as a stress response to planning an on-the-spot wedding. Not the best excuse, but it did work. The bridesmaids had their mothers to help with all the preparations needed to plan a wedding, or any event for that matter. Alina had no one. Of course, William's mother helped her along as much as Alina would allow. Truthfully, Alina secretly despised William's mother and all the prejudices and judgments behind each and every decision the woman made. William's mother had said to Alina, "Don't feature lilies, they are out of season." And William's grandmother would scoff at having such a flower featured at her grandson's wedding. "Don't have a buffet, it signals a poor vocation. Can we have the Clarefield prepare a finer menu?" Of course, Alina succumbed to the request, demands rather, although reluctantly. In the end, she wanted her wedding to happen without a hitch, and she wanted the event to pass without revealing the pregnancy. With only a week until the wedding, she couldn't have a palm reader giving up her secret, so she jumped at the palm reading offer to shut down the situation, believing if she hadn't, Maliva would have continued her inquiry and allowed the proverbial cat out of the bag. Maliva's store was small, tiny even, allowing for a small table with the expected crystal ball on top. 3 chairs, Alina guessed she read the palms of couples, and shelves on the side and back wall where a door led to a back room. The door consistently drifted open and closed, leaving a few inches between open and closed. Alina surmised there was another door in the very back of the shop that was open, ushering in a wind that continuously drifted against the shop's back door. She strained to see what was behind the door, but all she could see was black darkness. Hair on the nape of her neck cringed across her skin, her eyes wide, staring. Breath constricted as her heart skipped a beat. Something eerie about that room. Alina had thought someone was in the back room, watching and listening. Possibly another goat or friend or family member. She couldn't help that her attention was drawn to the darkness every time the door gently flapped open, then closed again. She attempted to distract herself from that eerie feeling by looking over the many trinkets, crystals, beads, incense, and candles on the shelves display, while Maliva sat at the table, lit a cigarette, and prepared for her customer. Maybe it was Maliva's eyes roaming over Alina that brought that eerie sensation. Perhaps all of the above contributed to the same, resulting in Alina's nervous disposition. She locked in on a small wooden statue of a gypsy woman with a crystal ball featured on her lap. You like? Maliva said. For protection, she added. Gitana is the gypsy who protects. The statue woman, Gitana, featured a fair and trusting face, solemn and soft. The door flapped closed with a slight brush of wood against wood, then creaked back open. Alina forced a smile, sensing Maliva was in tune with Alina's nervous demeanor, as if Maliva could see straight through her. The goat gave a bah, bah outside the shop. Does he always do that? Alina asked. Of course, Maliva said. He is goat. Alina dropped her shoulders. Of course, she said, and turned to Maliva. Although she'd released the tension with an obvious inquiry, that tension returned when she took in Maliva's gaze. Cigarette smoke framed Maliva's countenance, and Alina's eyes stared at Maliva through the haze. Alina constricted, and that damned morning sickness slithered into her throat. Sit, Maliva said, gesturing to the chair opposite her. The door creaked open, and cold wind rushed into the shop. Alina thought she heard the clunking of a cowbell. Alina gathered herself and went to the seat. How does this work? She asked, taking her seat as a wallop of smoke circled her head. She coughed into her fist, a dry, hacking cough that brought tears to her eyes, forcing Alina to clear her throat as if something had been wedged in her windpipe. Maliva seemed to not care about this raging, smoke-filled room she'd put together for her customers. She puffed again, smoke slithering into her lungs, then billowing over yellow teeth when she exhaled through her nose, and she stamped out the cigarette. Your hands, please, she said, cupping her hands across the table on opposite sides of the crystal ball. Alina froze. The door creaked closed with a slight soft thud against the door frame, then opened again, catching Alina's attention. Whatever was behind that door filled her heart with fear and terror. Her eyes searched through the door crack, looking for something, or someone behind the door, in the room, watching and listening. She had a rising thought that the room breathed on its own, that the wind was its breath and the door its lungs, holding its bated breath in apt anticipation. It's okay, said Maliva. We are alone. Alina thought, can she read my mind too? Maliva moved her head back and forth. We are safe here. No intruders are welcome. The door creaked closed. Alina's hands trembled when she placed them within Maliva's. The gypsy's hands were cold, the skin like crepe paper, thin but rough like sandpaper, with long fingers and nails gnawed down to the nub. The goat baaed as the door creaked open, and those eyes, Maliva's eyes, the blue seemed to gleam with a glint of crystal light, and then the trap door. Alina attempted not to look. She tried to turn her eyes away, but the black drew her in. You've endured great tragedy. Maliva's voice provided the distraction, her attention fixed on Alina's hand, Alina's left hand. Have you lost those who are closest to you? Her voice more matter of fact than probing. Alina cleared her throat. My parents, she said. You were caretaker, yes? Alina's hand shook. For my mother, she said. She constricted. Her body tightened as if the subject was too taboo, too painful to delve into. As if she could hide the pain and memories, close up her heart and shut the door on her thoughts. Maliva's eyes moved from the palm to Alina's eyes, slight and brief, as if she felt the constriction. Alina pursed her lips and forced a nervous smile that screamed, don't go there, felt her face flush and grow cold as beads of sweat formed on her upper lip and her stomach turned uneasy. Maliva returned to the palm. Yes, when you were very young, said Maliva. She was sick? Tuberculosis, Alina answered. Maliva turned her head, eyeing the palm lines, following them with her eyes. Your father, too. You took care of him for a long time. Being caretaker is natural for you. She pointed at Alina with her left forefinger. It is purpose, she said. Alina gave a quick nod, although Maliva's attention was maintained on the palm that she studied with apt intrigue. Another bah outside the shop, and the door creaked closed. Alina's skin hot, stomach acid, now slithered to the back of her teeth. Her hand shook again, and Maliva tightened her grip to steady the hand. Alina winced. You are a very loving person. You care for others more deeply than yourself. Maliva's eyes widened as she ran her hands up Alina's forearm, her thumbs pressing against flesh and cartilage through to the bone, then back down to the wrist where her fingertips brushed across the palm. Alina cocked her brow. Is this a part of the show, she thought? But she wanted to throw up, to vomit without restriction. Her lips quivered, wanting this reading to end as soon as possible, needing the reading to end so she could throw up. Now Maliva took Alina's right wrist, touching the palm with her fingertips. Alina noticed the bones in her left hand now ached. 2 children, Maliva said, and she leaned back in her chair, pulling Alina's wrist further across the table. You will be responsible for 2. To this, Alina perked up, despite the gnawing sickness. Boy or girl? Both, was Maliva's response. Alina dropped her head, satisfied with this response. No married, Maliva said. Alina was unsure if this response was a question or statement. She said, next Saturday. Maliva looked at her, inquisitive, skeptical, as if she knew something Alina did not. Our wedding is next Saturday, said Alina. We haven't told anyone that I'm expecting. We decided to wait until after our honeymoon. To this statement, Maliva's lips curled into a smile, as if she possessed a revelation she did not wish to share with Alina. Alina shuddered under the shadow of that knowing grin and noticed how Maliva's eyes changed, as if something devious tried to force itself from a heart filled with locked chambers. Maliva cocked and bowed her head. Congratulations, she said. You hide pregnancy from ignorant friends? She released Alina's wrist, and Alina immediately pressed her hand to her stomach. Of course, Alina said. They are my friends, but there will be judgments, and my fiancé's family will not allow the news to meet public. Not yet, anyway. Maliva moved her head back and forth. No good, she said. No good for baby. Brings bad energy to baby's health, pretending baby does not exist. In gypsy life, pregnancy is celebrated, husband or not. The statement hurt, yet she felt small under Maliva's stare. Alina thought, don't judge me, and thought of defending herself and her way of life, although she agreed with the gypsy. When she first discovered her pregnancy, she wanted to tell everyone, especially her friends. It was a time for celebration. Maliva is accurate in this regard, yet societal norms had to be adhered to. Alina understood this too, and being judged for her decision boiled her blood. Her face flushed, spotted with heat across her forehead and to her chin. Alina said, we're not gypsies. We live in a community of judgments, everyone waiting for the next scandal so they can have something new to talk about. She needed to defend her friends and their way of life, and Maliva seemed to take offense to the comment, her brow curled into a scowl. Perhaps gypsy life is best for you, said Maliva. Alina laughed, a simple, abrupt laugh filled with immediate regret. Maliva's eyes narrowed as Alina cleared her throat. I'm not suited for such a life. That would be a drastic change. Change is good, Maliva said, and then her eyes widened. Change comes to you if you like it or not. Alina shuddered at this last comment. The bah, followed by the door creak and soft thud. Her head spinning, overstimulated and heated. What does that mean, she thought, too afraid to ask. She crossed her arms over her stomach and her spine twisted, stiff and painful. Maliva tipped her head, glaring at Alina. Her eyes seemed to shimmer, to circle and spiral as Alina wrestled with the thought to delve into the trap door. Instead, she avoided the black compartment, fixed to Maliva's right eye, the skin beneath the eye thick as if a vein swelled beneath. She thought she heard voices swirling in the darkness, in a room behind the trap door, speaking soft yet rapid, incoherent, perhaps chanting, ushering in darkness with depths of despair. Images of ghouls, goblins, and demons standing, with black eyes staring, glaring, and chanting, and lapping tongues across serrated teeth, and purple, chapped, and cracked, and bleeding lips, in an endless sea of darkness where hate, terror, and suffering reigned over the sea like a god of despair and wretchedness, twisting hatred in the emptiness where a heart should be. And when she moved back to take in the full view of that dark room, she saw that the sea continued for what seemed an eternity. Alina's eyes were wide, stiff, the room spinning, circling. She could hear a continuous alarm like a dull ringing between her ears. Maliva's lips moved, her voice a lifetime away. Alina tried to read those lips, her heart racing as if her body were aware of a threat her mind had yet to discover. Her head heavy, her neck stiff, and when she tried to move, her head refused to move, restricted as a wallop of acid seeped and tore into the back of her teeth, and her throat swelled as if her windpipe was being squeezed and air was required. And then the drop, as if she returned to her body with a heavy thud. Her eyes rolled, and she threw up on the crystal ball. Her head, sweaty and heavy, flopped side to side as her body fell back. Maliva caught her before she hit the floor. "My dear," said Maliva, cradling Alina. That buzzing and ringing softened. Behind it, a loud clunking, like a cowbell furiously clanking, in unison with a continuous bah. Alina fell through the trap door, and darkness followed. Nice. Yes, nice. All right, got it. I still got 2 minutes left. So my name is PD Oliva. Love you all. Love Mike, Kelly, JMD Reed, everybody else that is part of the group. Glad you're here. Enjoy Golem. I loved writing this novel. It was definitely one hell of a great experience. That's a fact. And so, interested, go to my website. I'll leave the link in the comments, pdoliva.com. Join my mailing list. Right now, the first chapter is available for newsletter subscribers. So you'll get that. And you'll get another free book, too, Twisted Tales of Deceit, Dark Fiction Short Story Collection. And you'll also be privy to beta reading opportunities for the book. So this should be available, I would say, beta readers for probably August, maybe even before August, maybe a little after August. We'll see, right? But yeah, it'll definitely be available, and that is exclusive through my newsletter as well. So if you're a subscriber, you'll get all that information. You'll be able to be the first there. And I always love my newsletter. I do good things on it. Book fairs, free books, indie author spotlight. I give away a lot of swag, a lot of other stuff. So I definitely enjoy that newsletter. So definitely sign up. As I said, I'll leave the link in there. And I think that's it. So bye-bye. Love you.